Serbia has seen more than its share of political change over the past 15 years or so, and the state of the news media there remains a work in progress. Under the former president, the late Slobodan Milosevic, the media were tightly controlled. Since then, power has changed hands multiple times, and these days, under Prime Minister Aleksandar Vučić, the methods of media control are more sophisticated. The government and its supporters say that the media are free, whereas critics argue that the government influences editorial lines in various ways, including through the parceling out of advertising revenues, either directly from the state or from institutions friendly to the state. No matter how you slice it, those critics say it amounts to a form of censorship. There is another significant source of media funding in Serbia that comes from the European Union. And the EU's idea of quality journalism differs from that of the Vučić government. The Listening Post's Nick Muirhead now from Belgrade on the censorship debate in Serbia.
Belgrade, October 5th, 2000, the day President Slobodan Milosevic was overthrown. He was destined for The Hague and a war crimes trial at the International Criminal Court. He was found dead in his cell before facing judgment. Members of Milosevic's former government remained in Serbia, Information Minister Aleksandar Vučić among them. Vučić is now the Prime Minister. His Serb party, the SNS, took power in 2014, and critics say that media freedom has been on the decline ever since.
The environment is not conducive to the full exercise of freedom of expression. There are still some shortcomings. For example, journalists with very little job security and very low salaries that are prone to pressure.
Criticizing
Aleksandar Vučić can result in losing your job. There are plenty of examples. Olja Bećković's famous show Impression of the Week on the B92 channel had a large audience and was commercially successful, but it was cancelled. Recently, the Politika Daily, which is majority state-owned, terminated the contract of the cartoonist Dusan Petricic after he drew caricatures of Vučić.
The media landscape has changed fundamentally since the Milosevic era. The airwaves have opened up, newsstands have many more newspapers to sell, and Serbians have access to digital information. But it's the quality of that information that is at issue, with a growing number of journalists saying that, in one way or another, they are censored. The Prime Minister and his party disagree, and they have put their side of the argument on display through an exhibition called Uncensored Lies, which features selected examples of negative coverage over the last 3 years about the government. The exhibition first opened to the Serbian public in Belgrade.
More and more we heard the criticism of censorship. So-called censorship, they would say there is no freedom in Serbia, you cannot write about SNS or Prime Minister. So we wanted to show people, how it really looks like. How could you write in almost every newspaper so many negative things about us if there is a censorship? You just said this was written about us, and just without any comment from the party, we wanted to show you this and to ask you, do you feel that there is a censorship in Serbia?
After Belgrade, the exhibition made its way south to Kruševac. When we got there, it soon became clear that preparations had been made for our arrival. When we arrived here, the exhibition was empty, but mysteriously the place has filled up, and everyone here seems happy to talk to us, to tell us how great this exhibition is and how well it demonstrates that there's a free press in Serbia.
Bilo je krajnje vrijeme da se u javnost pokaže nešto da se ljudima kaže šta je laž, šta je istina.
Dobar je na svasti i više nego što jedna demokratska zemlja ima, znači da ne postoji cenzura medijska.
Na osnovu svega ovoga što možemo da ovdje vidimo i što je prikazano, svakako da nema.
And then, as quickly as the exhibition had filled up, it emptied. If the goal was to show public support for the government's approach to the media, then it lacked subtlety, much like the exhibition itself. Rather than providing evidence of a free press in Serbia, journalist associations say that it is the pinnacle of cynicism, starting with the name. uncensored lies.
Mislim da vladajuća struktura I
The problem with the current ruling party and its allies is that they do not understand a basic premise. Not all negative reports or criticism about those in power should be considered a lie. The name of the exhibition, Uncensored Lies, shows how those in power do not understand the clear difference between lies and criticism.
cenzura, a šta je laž.
This exhibition derives from the idea that news outlets that criticize the government and the politics of Aleksandar Vučić do so not because it's their job, but because they are paid or bribed, either by the West or some internal enemy.
Watching all of this from Brussels is the European Union. As a candidate for EU membership, Serbia has received 1.2 billion euros in funding from the EU between 2007 and 2013. Over the last 15 years, 32 million euros has gone into the media. And this year, an estimated 5.2 million euros will go to news outlets that focus on investigative journalism. Among the news reports on display at the exhibition is an investigative story written by Aleksandar Dordevic. He works for the BIRN project, an investigative news outlet that gets most of its money from the EU. The story revealed irregularities in the awarding of a state tender, which possibly cost taxpayers 120 million euros. The EU deemed the story to be award-winning investigative journalism. Serbia's interior minister put it another way. He said that he could not believe that the EU would fund a news outlet that lies.
It's a really question for EU. I mean, why did you award the journalist that wrote lies about something that was fair and honest government business in saving people's lives? That's a question. Was that just for, let's say, trying to write something that will be negative in order to get attention of the public? Or you had some other plans?
The rules under which we support the independent media are extremely clear. We do not intervene into editorial policy in any way, which in turn means that the views presented by those who win the grants are theirs alone.
Setting aside the issue of EU funds, the importance of which has been greatly exaggerated, EU officials have a quite tolerant attitude towards Aleksandar Vučić and the way that he treats the media. This is because EU officials are not interested in the media so long as Vučić fulfills his main political tasks relating to the Kosovo Agreement, regional stability and other strategic issues. When it comes to issues deemed important to the West, his treatment of the media stays in the background.
While some Serbian news outlets have alternative funding options, the majority need advertising to survive. The private sector ad spend is around 150 million euros a year, and it may be tainted by politics. Again, according to a BIRN investigation, private advertisers in Serbia deal with advertising agencies, intermediaries, that then allocate which news outlets get advertising. According to the investigation, the biggest agency in the country has close ties to the government.
To je matrica koja je preuzeta od prethodne vlasti.
They inherited this system from the previous ruling party. The owner of the biggest private advertising agency was Dragan Đilas, the mayor of Belgrade and one of the most influential people in the country. When the new government came to power, the company was taken over by the best friend of Aleksandar Vučić. What we are seeing is the continuation of politically controlled advertising.
Oglašavanje.
The state is financing censorship. It is subsidizing favorable media outlets and does its best to keep money away from critical ones. Media outlets face a dilemma. Their editorial policies must glorify Aleksandar Vučić or they will lose funds and be forced to shut down.
In the final days of the Milosevic era, the media were an issue in Serbia. RTS, the state-owned broadcaster, was derided as a government mouthpiece and attacked by protesters who helped dismantle, symbolically, the government's media apparatus. Times have changed. So have the players and some of the tactics. But make no mistake, the pro-government media machine is being rebuilt. And in making its case, exhibiting its position, the Serbian government of Aleksandar Vučić is showing its hand. its true colors.